Hey crafty friends, Kim from stampingandperfection.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm making a video with TLC Designs products today, and I'm very excited about this. I love this little craft store. They have some great clear stamps. Here I have a sentiment stamp, and I have one of their cute little dragon stamps, and you can see you get sentiments, little stamps, you get the big dragon stamp. Super cute. They have lots of digital stamps and digital papers, but the real gem, in my opinion, is the die sets that they have. And the die sets are really good prices. This is one of the interactive die sets they use so that you can make movable cards or movable pieces on your card. And this little centerpiece is my practice piece so that I could show you and then I can use it to try things out on. To see if I can get them to move the way I want them to. This die set is pretty fantastic. All those little pieces are part of that dial mechanism to help things move, but then you get these 3 frame pieces, and like this big one, you get this gorgeous mat, and I'm already thinking scrapbook layouts, card bases that are that beautiful shape. Then you get this middle-sized die that gives you this mat with this double stitch detail. So I love this. And I've cut this out in white cardstock and in pattern paper because the pattern paper is what I want to show. So you can see that stitch detail looks fantastic. Then there's a third piece that's got actually a double cutting blade on it with the stitch detail. So you get a frame and then you get another mat in the center. And you could put these together in all different ways to die cut them out. So the combinations feel like endless. Like if I put these two together, I'd get a much wider, bigger frame, and then I'd get a pretty mat in the center with a stitch detail. So I'm already anticipating using this for some inlay die cutting. So I die cut this green mat, and I'm definitely going to use that as the base of the front of my card. And I cut this middle piece, and I have 2 pieces of white cardstock and then one of the pattern paper. They recommend that you cut 2 of this particular piece to use so it's nice and sturdy for the movable parts. So I'm just going to use one of the white and the pattern paper, and then I cut the smaller one, and I'm going to use that frame piece. Could use the mat, but I love this frame and I love this stitch detail. So when I stack this all together, like I'm going to layer it on my card front, I have a little peak of green in the back and a little peak of green in the front, and then I have that great red. And while I was cutting things out, I cut a whole bunch of extra pieces, so those are going in my die cut bin. So I'm going to put these all away. This comes with a little tool piece that's quite clever. That little tool is going to help you make sure that your piece is movable. Now you need to pull your brads out of your stash. If you're like me, you have a drawer full of brads you haven't used in years. Now you can use them. You have an excuse because you need 7 brads to create this card. And those brads will not show in the end. But this is just a set of old Stampin' Up! Brads that I had. So I pulled those out. I'm excited to be able to use some stuff from my stash. So the first step, and the back of the package has great directions. And this paper, by the way, came from an Echo Park Christmas set. And I'm trying to use up this pad of paper, so I wanted to use this great snowflake paper. So the first step tells you to glue those 2 pieces together. And the sides are slightly different, so you want to make sure you get it lined up correctly. If you don't, you can just trim off the bottom piece, but there is a right way and a wrong way. So I've got those all glued together. I'll put those aside. Then step 2 tells you that you need 2 dial pieces. So that big piece is the dial piece. And I have added a piece of magnet, just a magnet board to my die set here so I can hold my pieces. And they tell you to adhere those 2 dial pieces together. I'm just using this tape runner just because it's the quickest thing I have. But if I was making more of these, I would go ahead and use my liquid glue. just because it holds well and it's inexpensive. So I die cut 4 of these. These are called the arms, and you need 4 of these, but you want to layer them together. So you have 2 arms that each have 2 layers. That's why I die cut 4. And then you have these little pieces. These are the washers. I've die cut 8 of those because we need 4 washers altogether, and they want us to have double layer washers as well. So now I'm just going to adhere all the washer pieces together, and I'll end up with 4 washers in the end. And I'm just lining them up so that the holes align. Now that little tool piece that I have, I die cut 4 of those and glued those together. So I'm taking the slider piece, and I'm using the larger of the 2 sliders. They give you options there. And I'm just going to die cut this out of the center of my card. Excuse me. So I'll just send this through my die cut machine, and I'll have the slots created so that I can attach all the pieces, and then my little decorative pieces will, my little critters or whatever you want to use there, will be able to move around. So I'm going to carefully remove this because this is going to be the front of my card. That pattern piece is the front of my card. So again, I'm being very careful. I have a magnet bowl there in front of me, and I'm being very careful to get those pieces back on that magnet piece. And I will store all of these. I have a plastic sleeve that I store these in, so if the pieces do fall off that magnet, I'll be okay. Now there's a little embossed dot in the center of those, and there's this little tiny die cut to die cut that hole. And you could use your paper piercer, or if you had a nice small hole punch, you could use that. Now this is the point where you also want to cut out the dial slot. Originally I cut it out like that on my prototype, but I felt like it was kind of big, that slot, so I'm sliding this down. I'm going to make that slot a little smaller. That's just so you can reach your die cut or your dial handle. So now I'm going to put this all together. I've got all my pieces. Everything's glued together, so everything is doubled. So now I'm just going to use this, and I had to redo this part because I kept going out of the screenshot, so you can see the hole in the center there. I forgot to cut the dial slot here, so I'll do that later, but you want to make sure you do that before you put all this together. All right, so the next step is step 3, and they're saying decide which hole on that dial you want to attach to that front piece. You need 3 holes in a row, so you can pick any hole to attach to the front piece except for the top one and the bottom one. So you can use the top 3, you can use the bottom 3, you can use the middle 3. I'm going to use the middle 3. So that means the center dot on that dial is going to be attached to my card front with the slots. So I'm going to start with, I'm now in step 4, and I'm attaching an arm to the dial. So I'm attaching that in the hole right below the center hole. So I put the brad through the dial, then through the arm, and then I slid the tool piece on there and opened the legs or wings of the brad. And that tool is just a spacer so that you have enough space so that your pieces move freely. So that's a very clever little design. So I just slide it in, open the wings, and then pull the tool back out. And again, that's 4, I die cut 4 pieces of that tool, and I'll keep that tool. I won't have to make that again. I'll keep that in the same package as this set of dies. So I'm taking a washer and I'm putting a brad through the front, and then I put that through the slot on the card front, and then I'm putting another washer on the back. Now I'm sliding my tool in, and I'm sorry you can't see this, and opening the wings and pulling the tool out. You'll see that better when I do it on the other side, because you're going to do this on each side. So again, brad goes through the washer, then it goes through the slot in the card front, then there's another brad that goes on the back, then slide your tool piece on around the brad and open the wings and pull the tool piece out. So then these slide beautifully. Super simple. Okay, now This is the point where I believe I realized I didn't put the slot in. So I'm up to step 4 here, or I'm still on step 4, and that is to attach this center dial to your card front. And I still use the tool here because that dial needs to pivot, so I want to make sure I have plenty of room to pivot. So here's where I went ahead and I cut out that dial piece. So I've got the whole thing together. Now I just need to attach those washers to the arms on the back. And you want to make sure those brads on the washer are toward the center of the card and the hole is toward the end. So I'm going to slide a brad through both washers through the slot. Then I'm going to attach the arm that I have on the center dial. I'm just going to pull that up and attach it to all the other stuff. So I have a washer, a card front, a washer, then the arm. I put my tool on, open up the wings, and pull the tool out, and look how nicely that slides. So I'm going to do it with the last hole. This is my 7th brad. So again, you want the holes facing the edge of the card, the outer edge. You're going to, I tried to line everything up and see if I could just slide that brad through. It didn't work that well for me. I'm just all thumbs or something. So it goes through the washer, through the slot, through the second washer. The arm goes through the brad, or the brad goes through the arm, and then I use my little tool so that I have plenty of space. And that's the whole mechanism. Now I'm going to take that mechanism and I'm going to attach it to that big mat. And I'm using some foam tape. And I discovered as I was doing this that you need to be careful where you place your foam tape, because you want to make sure all those things can freely move where they're supposed to. So I just sort of put it around the top and bottom and a couple pieces on the outer edges that didn't hit the thing when I moved it. So I took some time to do this. And now I'm just going to attach this to that green mat that I made. And I love traditional red and green cards. Sometimes I like to change it up. Now I didn't cut out the slot on that green piece. You could cut out the slot on the green piece, and it might be a little easier to hold. I just sort of bent it up a little bit, and then I'm just attaching that front frame. And I didn't put foam on that because my pieces need to move. Now I'm using the Snow Family Fun tree set, and this is a digital stamp set. And this is a pre-colored digital stamp set. You can get it in black and white and color it yourself, or you can do the pre-colored version, which of course I chose because that's quicker and easier. Now, right here you see me just putting one little piece of foam. You're going to want to put at least 2 pieces of foam. I want that hat to go over the snow lady's head. So 2 pieces of foam will pop that hat up a little higher than the snow person there, in this case, snow woman. So I'm putting some foam on the second slider piece, and that's where the snow person is going to go. And that a little bit of that, and I'm just kind of playing with it to get it so the hat fits nicely on her head, and when I slide it back and forth, it actually slides on there, so I like it. But that one slider piece shows a little bit, so I'm going to attach a little bird to the top of her hat. The little bird is part of the set, also pre-colored. And by the way, I just cut these out with my brother's Scan and Cut. There's a star, there's another bird, there's, you could put your sentiment there if you wanted to. And then you can just play with it. And that's the fun part. So I have a couple more things. I decided that I wanted to add a little sentiment, but I wanted it to be easy. There are a lot of sentiments in the digital stamp kit. This is the Tim Holtz Ideology Christmas set. I just pulled off a Merry Christmas and then kind of played around. I fussed a little bit before I decided I just want to keep this simple and I want to keep it on top. And I need to make sure it's not going to interfere with the movement of my dies or of my card pieces. So the last thing I want to do is I want this to be a card. So I took a piece of black cardstock, and this is cut at 4 1/4 by 8 and a half. No, it's cut at 8.5 by 5.5, and I just scored it at 4.25 there in the center. I just folded it in half. Notice that my die is hanging off the edge because I want this to be a card, so I don't want to die cut the end where I want the fold to be. So I just let the die hang off the end. I ran it through my machine, and then when I pull it out, I will actually be able to open that up. So it'll behave like a card front. Now you'll notice that the double stitching turned out really nice on one side there. And I'm going to put that as the back of the card because this part of the card is going to be attached to that piece I just spent all that time making. And I'm just going to put some nice double-sided tape here and attach that piece to the bottom. And this is going to be a little smaller than that green piece because I used the medium-sized die to cut it. So you'll see on the back of the card, you'll actually see a little of the back side of that pattern paper. And I die cut a piece of white and trimmed off the edge in the back so that it fit nicely along the fold, and I'm just gluing that down and attaching that so I can write my message on the inside of this card, and somebody's going to enjoy this card because it's interactive. They can play with it. So I think that's a really fun little detail to add. So it's still a card. You could make it a gift bag topper, and I had some other pieces from the digital set that I had also printed and die cut. I decided just to put a little star in there because I know I'm going to want more room to write a message. But that's going to complete my card, and you can see it moves back and forth, and it's, I now have a space for a message, but it would be a beautiful gift card topper. It would be a beautiful Christmas tag, a topper on a gift box, like many possibilities for what you can do with this, or just frame it and put it on your table. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel while you're here. Make sure you click the bell to get notifications every time you upload a new video. I'll put all the links below to TLC Designs. Stop by my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Thank you for watching.